Deep within the forests of South Jersey's Pine Barrens, there are legends of a horrifying creature known as the Jersey Devil. Often described as a dragon-like beast with the head of a goat, the wings of a bat, and cloven hooves, the Jersey Devil is one of the most iconic creatures in American folklore, and one that's left locals terrified for decades. As the legend goes, the creature known as the Jersey Devil has bizarrely human origins. Born to a woman named Jane Leeds, or more commonly referred to as Mother Leeds, in 1735, it is said that when she discovered she was pregnant with her 13th child, she cursed it in frustration, declaring that it would be, quote, the devil. Although the child was born seemingly normal, it eventually transformed into a horrifying creature with hooves, a goat's head, bat wings, and a forked tail. The creature attacked the rest of its family before escaping the home and fleeing into the Pine Barrens, where some say it still resides to this day. Like any piece of folklore, there are some other variations on the story. Some claim that Mother Leeds was actually a witch and that the Jersey Devil was sired by Satan himself. In any event, the story proliferated throughout the region, and by 1909, the story was so widespread that newspapers were writing headlines about alleged encounters with the Jersey Devil. In fact, for about a week in January of that year, newspapers reported on hundreds of alleged encounters with the Jersey Devil between South Jersey and Philadelphia, with further sightings soon being reported in Delaware and Maryland. Groups of vigilante hunters assembled to search for the Jersey Devil in the Pine Barrens, and it was even rumored that the Philadelphia Zoo would pay $10,000 to anyone who could capture the beast. Naturally, no one has ever succeeded in capturing the Jersey Devil, but that hasn't stopped people from claiming to have seen it. In 1925, a farmer claimed to have shot and killed a beast matching the Jersey Devil's description, which he then photographed and said that none of the 100 people he showed it to could identify it. 30 years later, circa 1957, other locals claimed to have seen an animal corpse that also seemingly matched the beast's description. Then, throughout the 1960s, mysterious tracks and noises heard near the town of Mays Landing sparked further rumors about the Jersey Devil, and once again, a $10,000 bounty was put out on the beast's head. The potential rewards also led to a number of hoaxes over the years, some rather embarrassing ones too, given that a fake Jersey Devil was once on display at a museum. Still, it's hard to deny just how vital and unsettling the story of the Jersey Devil remains more than a century after this tale first began to spread, hoax or not. You're listening to History Uncovered, where we explore the uncharted corners of the natural world and the world past. I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Austin Harvey.
And I'm All That's Interesting editor Kara Johnson.
And today we're discussing the legend of the Jersey Devil.
Ooh, creepy.
Oh, where's my... I got this at like an Oddities Expo.
Oh, look at it. It's hideous.
Yeah. What are you talking about? He's adorable.
He looks like a deer with wings. I know it's supposed to be a goat, but...
I was going to say, they do kind of make him look a little almost horse-like in this one. I wish I don't know who the artist is. I would give them credit, shout them out. But clearly, this week we're getting into a little bit of my territory here. I don't know if I don't think I've made it evident on the podcast before, but I'm kind of a weird guy. I really like cryptids, and like growing up, that was like I was like really into it, and I would always look stuff up on the early days of the internet when every website was like HTML.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time looking at like, is that a real picture of Bigfoot?
I know, and just in time for Halloween too.
Yeah, perfect timing. How familiar are you with the legend of the Jersey Devil?
I actually hadn't heard of it before doing research for this episode. I guess I grew up in Virginia, so yeah, I guess that cryptid just didn't make its way down to us.
The Jersey Devils, they are a sports team, I think, right?
Are they?
I don't know
Jersey sports
Devils.
Either, so...
I don't really either. They're a hockey team, the New Jersey Devils as well. So if anyone is curious where that comes from, this is where it comes from.
What an influential little creature.
He's pretty popular. He's a pretty popular guy, the Jersey Devil. We'll go over like the general story first. The Jersey Devil is the most common name for it, but occasionally you'll hear it be called the Leeds Devil. Some people have called it the Devil of Leeds. These would have two different points of origin. The Leeds Devil kind of goes with like the most common version of the story, dealing with the Leeds family. Whereas when they call it the Devil of Leeds, they're talking about maybe Leeds Point in South Jersey. I haven't really heard too many variations on that tale or why that would be super relevant. Generally, the story goes, there was this woman living in New Jersey's Pine Barrens, which is like, I didn't realize this before. The Pine Barrens is massive. It's like 1.1 million acres of land.
Wow.
So I assumed it was like a tiny, like a forest or something. It's like,
right,
no,
a park.
This is like, yeah, it's like most of New Jersey.
Is it like southern? Oh, it looks like it's like central-ish, kind of right smack dab in the middle. Not too far from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Kind of directly east.
Right, yeah. Very big area of land here that we're dealing with. So, because when we get into the story, you hear like, oh, the Jersey Devil lives in the Pine Barrens. Like, it makes you think like, yeah, like a national park or like a forest, like a small, it's cursed. It's like, no, it's pretty much everywhere.
If you're in Jersey, you're screwed.
Yeah, kind of. The story goes, there was a woman living in the Pine Barrens. Her name was Mother Leeds, and she had 12 children. When she learned that she was pregnant with a 13th, she was frustrated.
I can imagine.
And cursed the child as a relatively recent parent.
Yes, I have one. He's a year and a half now, and I can't imagine having two even.
Right. So, yeah. And we're talking 1700s. So I guess you needed a lot of kids to work the land. And
I guess, and a lot of them died back then. So.
Right. But I guess unlucky number 13 was the point of no return for her.
Right. The breaking point for her.
So she cursed the child, and she says, this child's going to be the devil, which, hey, we all say things we regret, but it didn't work out too well for her. On a stormy night in 1735, Mother Leeds gave birth to her 13th child, and the child seemed normal at first. And then he transformed into this monstrous creature, and the typical description is that he has cloven hooves, a goat's head, bat wings, and a forked tail. The child then, this devilish monster child, then attacked his family, flew out the chimney, and escaped into the Pine Barrens. That's like the most basic version of the story. There's other ones that say maybe Mother Leeds was a witch and that the baby's father was actually the devil. There's another version that says that some local clergymen gathered and tried to exorcise the creature from the Pine Barrens at one point, but the generally accepted thing is Mother Leeds, 13th child. There is a little bit of truth to that matter, which we'll get into later when we kind of talk about the stuff behind the legend.
Right.
But this story, like a lot of other folklore, was never really written down originally. It was passed along orally until like sometime in the early 1900s when it started to show up in print, because there was a string of alleged sightings of the Jersey Devil.
Right.
And that was when people started calling it the Jersey Devil as well.
Right. The infamous mass hysteria event.
Yeah. For about a week in 1909, which is very interesting. Prior to that, there were a few mentions. I found one, 1859 Atlantic Monthly, talked about some of the Leeds Devil folk tales that were popular among residents of the Pine Barrens. There was one paper from 1887 that referred to the Devil of Leeds, with some reports of locals seeing a winged creature flying around. And I copied it verbatim here, but they wrote, whenever he went near it, it would give a most unearthly yell that frightened the dogs. It whipped at every dog on the place. That thing, said the colonel, being interviewed for this article, is not a bird nor an animal. It is the Leeds Devil, according to that description. And it was born over in Evesham, Burlington County 100 years ago. There is no mistake about it. I saw the horrible critter myself, but I can remember well when it was roaming about in Evesham woods 50 years ago, and when it was hunted by men and dogs and shot at by the best marksmen there were in all South Jersey, but could not be killed.
Terrifying.
Truly.
That's also around the time that Napoleon Bonaparte's brother reportedly saw the Jersey Devil in Bordentown, where he had an estate that he kind of fled to after he, abdicated the Spanish throne and lost at the Battle of Paris and all that casual stuff. And I was looking into his reported sighting of it, and the legend I read stated that, he was out hunting in the woods on his estate one snowy day, and he saw tracks in the snow that looked like they belonged to a 2-footed donkey with 1 foot larger than the other, which is very specific, but... Yeah,
a malformed 2-footed donkey is not a typical sight.
No, absolutely not. But he sees these footprints in the snow, and he's kind of sitting there pondering them because they just kind of end abruptly as if the creature flew away. And as he's staring at these prints in the snow, wondering what they could possibly be, he hears this hiss behind him, and he turns around, and there's the Jersey Devil. I think he described it as a large creature with a head like a horse and legs like birds. Yeah. And they just kind of stare at each other for a while. He forgets he has his gun on him. He just is in shock, as anyone would be. And then it just hisses at him again and flies away.
Wow. Sounds like he got off lucky then.
Right? I turn around and see a giant devil monster behind you, and it just hisses and runs.
Death in the face. Yeah,
exactly.
Good old Joseph Bonaparte. Wow.
Yeah.
That is such an interesting connection. It's such a weird, because before looking into this, and I'm probably going to get a rude comment about it in the reviews. I don't know everything about history. I didn't really even know that Napoleon had a brother, nor did I. Moved to New Jersey at some point.
Of all places.
So, of all places. Very strange and very weird that somehow ties into the legend of the Jersey Devil.
It's a small world.
So, yeah, apparently. About 20 years after that, there was like another little incident where a bunch of livestock suddenly went missing. Locals blamed the Jersey Devil for it. There's no evidence of that, obviously. But similar to like other legends, like in parts of Mexico and like southern Texas, you hear stories about like the chupacabra, the goat sucker. People would like find their goats dead and they'd be like, oh, it must be this horrible creature that eats goat blood. So, people always want to find their boogeyman, I suppose.
Exactly. You see some weird tracks in the ground one day and you need an explanation for them. So here comes the Jersey Devil.
Yeah. Sacre bleu, I've never seen a donkey on two legs before.
Exactly.
But as we alluded to, there was one year in particular. It was not even a full year. It was 1 week in January of 1909. That is like the height of Jersey Devil mania, if you want to call it that. This was from January. This is crazy. It's crazy that that's like a thing I can say. From January 16th to the 23rd, there were hundreds upon hundreds of claimed encounters with the Jersey Devil, effectively making it like the first I don't know, maybe not the first, but a very early example of like a viral story.
Right.
That just got passed around. It's 1909. There's no Twitter. The people aren't just like freaking out on their own. So all of this is coming secondhand, thirdhand into newspapers. I just grabbed a few of the headlines that were published. Mm-hmm. We've got Fly Rival of Leeds Devil Has Jersey People Frightened. What Is It Visits All South Jersey. Vampire Missing. Look out, Jersey. Leeds Devil Runs Rampant in Jersey. Jersey Terror in Town. Night Watchman Saw It. Kensington Man has a news story of South Jersey Freak.
The South Jersey Freak. Later known as the Jersey Shore.
Oh my God, it's Pauly D.
Pauly D is the Jersey Devil.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was looking into some of these, just looking at the actual articles, and I think it was the What Is It Visits South Jersey one had the funniest explanation or descriptions in it. It has a photo in the article that it says are the actual prints of the Jersey Devil, but they're just horseshoes, like horseshoe prints.
Like
it looks like someone took a horseshoe, and put it in a straight line across the snow and said, oh, it's the Jersey Devil. But the article said these footprints were seen across roofs, fences, and backyards. And it said, farmers today set out hundreds of steel traps where the uncanny tracks are most plainly marked in the snow, and tonight scores of young men armed with shotguns are watching for the strange beast that has thrown this section into a state bordering on panic. And then goes on to say hounds put on the trail refused to follow the tracks, and with bristling hair and the picture of terror ran home. The farmers followed the tracks for nearly 4 miles when the hoofprints mysteriously disappeared, similar to Napoleon's brother's story.
Yeah. There's a weirdly similar, maybe Middle Ages story from England. There was this town that people claimed was visited by the devil. Very similar thing where they were seeing these like cloven tracks on like rooftops and things like that. I'm just pulling this from memory, so I don't even remember the town or anything like that. But yeah, very weirdly similar. It was like, how could there possibly be these hoof prints on the roof of my cottage. And
where did
it must
they come
be the
from?
devil. And I think it's also important to note that these weren't like National Enquirer articles that were from this. Like the What Is It Visits All South Jersey is from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Right. It's in actual legitimate newspapers from the time.
Which is mind-boggling that it was only a little over 100 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there were like claims in there that the Jersey Devil attacked a trolley car near Camden. Another one said that police saw it and shot it and couldn't kill it. This eventually within a week, this story blew up. And then people as far as Delaware and Western Maryland were saying, I've seen the Jersey Devil. There were several schools in the Delaware Valley that were closed for the week. And a bunch of workers were told not to come into work. Which, again, in 1909 is a crazy thing to tell your workers. Because I'm like, they didn't even have like rights.
I know, right? I know this is before the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, even when, they're forcing people to work through,
Yeah. The Jersey Devil was the best thing that could happen to you if you were in Delaware at the time.
Exactly.
I mean, probably unpaid leave.
Right. But hey, get a vacation for the first time in 20 years.
And then, yeah, you mentioned this, or the article mentioned this, that there were groups of devil hunters who would go into that's what they call themselves, devil hunters, would go into the Pine Barrens to look for the Jersey Devil. And like I said, that's more than 1.1 million acres of land.
That's
with just
wild.
People wandering in with shotguns looking for one creature.
This reminds me of, I think it's the Enfield monster, the Illinois cryptid from the 1970s, when these monster hunters all kind of flocked to Illinois to look for this cryptid or this monster that people were seeing. And the citizens of Enfield were like, whoa, you're going to accidentally shoot a person or a livestock. Please don't do that.
Yeah. Or it even bears some similarity to one that we've covered on the podcast before, the Kelly Hopkinsville alien encounter.
Right. When the whole,
where
was
people
it Kentucky?
were like drunkenly shooting at what they said were like aliens or goblins.
Run to the sheriff's office. There's aliens outside my house. Okay, Billy Bob. And
there's also a lot of similarities between one Jersey Devil related incident and I think it was the Hodag. This other cryptid. Yes. It was called the Hodag. This was in, I gotta find the city. Rhinelander, Wisconsin. This guy reportedly captured a creature that he called the Hodag, and he displayed it in his circus. And it was just like a paper mache, like Frankenstein monster that he put together. Right. But it's a really big part of the history there. They have the Hodag Country Festival every year, and there's a big statue of the Hodag. But straight up was just a hoax. Very similar also to the jackalope, like where people just took a rabbit, threw some horns on it, and they sold it to a guy for like a couple $100s.
Exactly. Like, hey, here, this is a creepy creature that lives in Wyoming. Catch it if you can.
Yeah. Good luck.
Right. I love the story about the hoax in the museum surrounding the Jersey Devil, where I think the publicist for this museum knew that it was in danger of closing because of low attendance. So he concocted the Jersey Devil and said, oh, we caught it. It's in captivity here at our museum. Come see it. But it's really just a kangaroo they painted green and glued fake claws onto.
Yep. And it's so funny because I still have like all these newspaper headlines up. Ninth and Arch Museum puts out a statement, caught and here, alive. The Leeds Devil captured Friday after terrific struggle. That next part is illegible on this one, but then there's 3 things: swims, flies, gallops.
Yes, exactly. I think it says the fearful, frightful, ferocious monster, which has been terrorizing 2 states, exhibited securely chained in a massive steel cage, a living dragon. And then on this flyer, there's just an actual drawing of a straight up dragon. Like, they don't even try to be creative.
The most iconic image is also like the goofiest one. Like if you just go to the Wikipedia page for the Jersey Devil, like the top image is from an old, not even a newspaper. It's from a wanted poster. Wanted, Jersey Devil, reward offered for the capture, dead or alive, of the Leeds monster, also known as the Jersey Devil. Approach with extreme caution. $250 reward.
And isn't there a rumor at least that the Philadelphia Zoo offered a $10,000 reward?
$10,000 for this thing. I'm not certain if that was $10,000 at the time or if that was for inflation.
Exactly. I put it into an inflation calculator, and that would be more than $300,000 today, which is wild. So, yeah, I don't know.
Do you think that reward is still up? Because
if so, then let's go Jersey Devil hunting.
I'm about to take a little weekend trip to Jersey.
I could use that.
So that 1909 hysteria blew up. That lasted about a week and then I guess just stopped. Sociologists today look back, they say that's a mass hysteria fueled by an urban legend.
Right. It's like the Salem witch hunts.
Yeah, but it wasn't the last time this happened. Like, that's like the biggest one, but there were other reported incidents. Like December 1925, a farmer in Greenwich Township said he saw an unidentified animal attempting to steal his chickens. Then he claimed to have shot the creature and produced a photograph of its corpse, which he showed to around 100 people, none of whom, he said, could identify it. Sucks for him because he could have gotten a reward for that, apparently.
Exactly. It's probably like a coyote with rabies or something.
Right. Like, and there's no evidence of that photograph existing anywhere anymore. And obviously he didn't kill, if there is a Jersey Devil, didn't kill it because in 1951, a group of boys in Gibbstown said they saw a monster similar to the Jersey Devil. In 1957, a corpse matching the beast's description was reportedly found, though there's no evidence of that. In 1960, people claimed to hear strange noises and find mysterious animal prints around Mays Landing. In that same year, another group offered a $10,000 reward. This was a group of merchants in Camden, and they said they would build it a private zoo. And then, of course, as you mentioned, yes, in 1909, a guy did buy a kangaroo, strapped some bat wings onto it,
and called it a day,
and showed it off. And then 20 years later, he was like, no, that was a hoax. That wasn't real.
As if he had to. I guess in 1909, no one had really seen a kangaroo here in America. Yeah. So I guess maybe drawings of them, because photos were around by then, but who was really going around taking photos of kangaroos and publishing them in America? I don't know if
wildlife photography had really taken off.
Exactly.
I don't even know if you really could get good photographs of things in the wild.
Yeah, especially wild animals like that moving a lot. I don't know how good, action photography was at the time. So yeah, I guess the average American probably didn't know what a kangaroo looked like in 1909, sure, so he could get away with it, but still.
It is funny to think back now knowing what a kangaroo looks like.
Just imagine one painted green.
Of the Jersey Devil. Yeah, and it's like, at no point did they say that this thing was green. That was never part of the description.
They just decided to, poor kangaroo.
They're like, oh, that's going to look really scary. Better paint this guy green. But it's like, it doesn't even look like the description. Like, maybe with the bat wings, but like, it doesn't have cloven hooves,
a forked tail,
unless they just really like mess this thing up. But
yeah, I guess you could it's kind of similar to a goat's head ish, but
or if you only let people see it from a distance, like they're not getting too close, you're kind of like quickly like, oh yeah, look at that, and okay, push him.
Yeah, go on, come on, we've got too many people. Yeah. Go.
You can't stare at the beast for too long, or it will
it will attack,
psychically influence you. Yeah,
right.
Something like that. There's always some grift associated with it, but I hope the museum, I hope they did well. I hope it paid off for them.
Yeah, I think they were charging 10 cents a view, which was I put that into the inflation calculator too, and it was like $3.50 today. So depending on how many people saw it, that could be fairly lucrative.
Yeah, but obviously, I think it's safe to say, or let's assume there's no such thing as the Jersey Devil, because I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum. If you want to believe in it, go ahead.
By all means.
That's your prerogative. But let's just assume for a moment that there is not a Jersey Devil. What would it be, right? What else could this thing be?
Besides Pauly D.
Besides, if it's not the actual Jersey Devil and it's not Polly D, is it the situation?
Is it Snooki?
Snooki. Is she the Jersey Devil? Some might say yes.
Some may say yes.
Some might say yes. But no, there are several actual scientific explanations. I think the first thing to caveat here is that long before people were talking about the Jersey Devil, they were talking about creepy flying creatures and other paranormal things in the Pine Barrens. Because historically, the Pine Barrens, again, so much land was inhospitable. There were gangs of highwaymen who would like stalk through the night and rob and attack travelers. There's also just this like stigmatic reputation between the 18th and 19th centuries. They basically like considered anyone who lived in the Pine Barrens to be a social outcast. It was people like poor farmers, fugitives, Native Americans. There's a little bit of xenophobia involved here.
Right.
Poachers, moonshiners, runaway slaves, deserting soldiers, Napoleon's brother.
The usual.
And so there were a lot of like, negative stories spread about it to discourage people from traveling through or visiting. A 20th century eugenics study also lowered the reputation of the locals, describing them as congenital idiots and criminals.
Well then.
Ooh, eugenics, huh?
Yeah, right?
There are also a bunch of different ghost stories. There's people say the ghost of the famous pirate Captain Kidd inhabits the Pine Barrens. There's a ghost called the Black Doctor, who was an African-American doctor who practiced in the Pine Barrens. The ghost of the Black Dog, the ghost of the Golden-Haired Girl, and the ghost of the White Stag. So it just kind of had a bad reputation. So It's not surprising that something else came out of that. There also really was a Leeds family in the area. Their family crest featured a wyvern, which is like a European dragon-like creature.
Got it.
They also had a bad reputation and a notable rivalry with Benjamin Franklin because they produced an almanac and it competed directly with Poor Richard's almanac.
Fascinating.
But the Leeds family almanac had astrological symbols in it as well, because the family patriarch, Daniel Leeds, he was like really into esoteric ideologies, occultism, mysticism, demonology, natural magic, cosmology. He incorporated those things into his almanac and people were basically like, witchcraft.
Yeah. So I guess any rumor about such a family related to the devil would kind of take off naturally.
And he did, according to like historical documentation, he did have 12 children.
Wow. So that's Daniel Leeds, the father of the Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
Literally.
There is a genuine like history there that like the Leeds family, we'd probably not really know about them if the Jersey Devil legend hadn't become so proliferated.
Right. Because who would, aside from their, I guess, rivalry with Ben Franklin, who would really look into some random New Jersey family with 12 kids from the 1700s.
Right. But now, because of this story, we look back and we're like, oh, okay, well, we hear about the Jersey Devil. We hear about Mother Leeds. Oh, there really was a Leeds family. Oh, they really did have 12 kids. Oh, they were kind of considered to be a little bit weird and like straying from the norm.
Right. But is this just us rewriting history, looking, making
it's kind of just slander.
The Jersey Devil fit a narrative, right? We're just gossiping about him.
This family. Yeah. Which is, really all it comes down to.
Sorry, Daniel.
But that doesn't account for all the like the people who said they saw it, right? So what did people maybe actually see? The leading suggestion from experts is that they were looking at vagrant sandhill cranes because they're about the same size as the description of the Jersey Devil and they make distinctive loud vocalizations. I looked up a picture of a sandhill crane.
Yeah, they're not very...
Doesn't really look like the Jersey Devil.
Like a bat.
No, it just looks like a big bird, which again, like, okay, it's dark. You just see this big thing. You're kind of freaking out. You don't really know what it is.
Right.
I don't buy that personally. I'm not an expert, though. So take my words with a grain of salt.
Maybe not even Joseph Bonaparte's description of it, because he said it had two bird-like legs, but the rest of his description doesn't fit it. I mean, the wings, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a personal theory.
Yes, what is your personal theory?
Which is that the Jersey Devil was a hammer-headed bat.
Those things are pretty hideous.
They're pretty creepy looking. They're big. We actually have an entire article about them over at All This Interesting.
We do.
Because they're so bizarre. But like, you take a look at this thing. It's kind of got like a horse-like weird face.
Right. Goat-like, horse-like.
Has bat wings because it is a bat. And it's huge. And if you saw it flying at night and you didn't know what it was, like to your point about the kangaroo, if you don't know what a kangaroo is, and you could be fooled into thinking that's the Jersey Devil, imagine seeing this freak of nature that is the hammerhead bat. And like, I don't know, I'd probably be scared too. I'd be scared if I saw one knowing what it is.
I know, they're terrifying. Where do they live? Africa?
That's what I was just about to see if there was ever one in New Jersey.
But I mean, if there was a kangaroo in New Jersey, then someone might have brought a bat to New Jersey.
That's true. They are from continental Africa, but yeah, it's not impossible that it could have ever been in Jersey.
Let's see. I'm looking up other strange creatures that have lived in New Jersey, and none of them are bat-like or goat-like or...
Right. I really have a hard time buying into the sandhill crane theory.
Yeah.
I get that they would have passed through there, but that it looks like a bird. It's a bird.
Exactly. I mean, maybe, again, like a weird coyote, but didn't coyotes also not used to live everywhere in America?
That sounds right, yeah.
I mean, they existed, but I don't know if they existed in New Jersey in the 18th century. But it could have been like a mangy coyote or something, and they just...
Yeah, I mean, it could have been anything, really.
So bizarre.
Or maybe, I don't know, or maybe it's all real. Maybe that's why we can't find a different explanation, right? Occam's razor. And faced with competing explanations for the same phenomenon, the simplest is likely the correct one.
And in this case, it's that the Jersey Devil exists, yeah.
I guess it's real. And that's the end of that. We did a thorough investigation.
Exactly. That's our conclusion.
Yeah, but probably not.
No, it's just Pauly D.
But it is a really fascinating story because I think, like, let's say, other than like Bigfoot and like similar things like the Yeti, I can't think of any piece of like folklore that has lasted as long and like in like a believable sense. Because we're talking like 2 centuries worth of people believing this tale.
Plus, yeah. And I guess other similar cryptids, either, they existed just as long ago, but there aren't any modern sightings of them, or they didn't really start to be sighted until modern times. Their story doesn't go back that far. So
right, like even the Loch Ness Monster is only like 70 years old
1930s or something.
Yeah, so that's pretty recent. Bigfoot's also very recent.
Right.
Like I said, like, and then there's like older things like the jackalope and the hodag, but those were very quickly proven to be hoaxes at the time.
Exactly. No one. I mean, people might still believe in them, but
sure. But like, especially like the hodag thing, it's like, oh, they determined it was a hoax at the time, and there haven't been any recent sightings where people were like, actually, maybe it wasn't a hoax. I think the only other cryptid that might have had quite a long one is the squonk.
Squonk.
It's the squonk is a Pennsylvanian cryptid. It's supposed to live in the hemlock forest near Johnstown, which is not that far from where I live. And it's known for crying constantly because it's so ugly.
Oh,
and it dissolves into tears when it's caught. But I think
I'm the squonk.
Tales of the Squonk. Yeah. So I did a cryptid tournament podcast with my friends, and we were going through, like, we started talking about a bunch of different cryptids and like kind of doing like a bracket, like, oh, who would win, and maybe not necessarily a fight, but which one do we like more? The Fresno Nightcrawlers versus the Chupacabra. And I think we got it down to Bigfoot and the Squonk, and we went with the Squonk being the winner just because of how relatable it was.
Right, I know. It just looks at itself in the mirror and just cries. Just cries itself to death. Same.
Yeah. Same.
Oh, man.
So that's the legend of the Jersey Devil. I think it's a very fun story. A fun little piece of like Americana. We don't have a lot of like legends in America because we're not that old of a country. I mean, Native American lore aside, there's no like ingrained like mythology in American culture. The closest we have are these like folklore cryptid creatures. And so when you have one with as rich of a history as the Jersey Devil, I think it's very fun. I pulled up a list of other cryptids just to try and remember what some of them were. Mm-hmm. There's the Loveland frog from Loveland, Ohio, which was spotted a couple times, and it was said to be a giant man-sized frog with a magic wand. There's the Ogopogo, which is Canadian, but that dates back to Native American stuff. We mentioned Chupacabra. There's the Dover Demon, which just looks like an alien gray that a couple people said they saw. The Mongolian death worm.
That reminds me of the Alaskan bullworm from SpongeBob.
I think that was probably the inspiration for it.
Probably. In South Carolina, we have the boo hag. The boo hag is Gullah culture, and it's a witch type creature, I guess, a witch type cryptid. They're kind of similar to vampires.
Oh, yeah. I was like, that sounds really familiar to me. I watched a horror movie a few years back that I am totally blanking on the name of, but it was inspired by the legend of the boo hag because the boo hag takes off its skin at night, and that's like a big part of it.
So eerie.
Yeah, that's pretty gross. And then the Mothman, obviously, another famous one, which I think we did an episode on. Yeah. But yeah, and it's always really interesting to dive into these like cultural things and then to look at the larger context and say like, okay, there were all these legends. Why? And it's like, oh, well, you had this unpopular family, so there were rumors told about them, and there were also stories about terrifying things living in the woods. Mm-hmm. And over time, those things probably just started to blur together, and people were like, oh, did you hear about the Leeds family? Their 13th child was born a monster, and then it just becomes a thing. Fact. And then a couple people see something in 1909, and then everyone freaks out, and people in Delaware don't go to work.
Get the day off. Congrats.
Got the day off. That's the story of the Jersey Devil. For anybody listening, if you want more of this, or if you want to read the story, you can do that over. It's on allthisinteresting.com. You can go to allthisinteresting.com/membership if you want to become a member for $5 a month. That'll actually get you an ad-free experience on the website, an exclusive newsletter, and access to our monthly bonus show, the History Happy Hour, which is a segment we used to do, which is now a members-only segment there. You can go to allthat'sinteresting.com/sign up to sign up for our newsletter as well. Or if you want to write in an email, you can send that to podcast@allthat'sinteresting.com. You can give us a call and leave a voicemail at 929-526-3029 if you feel like doing that instead of writing an email. We do listen to everyone that comes in, and we take it to heart. We like hearing from people. You can also find us on social media and Instagram at History Uncovered Podcast, on TikTok at Real History Uncovered, or on YouTube, where you might already be listening to this episode. What else? What do we have coming up?
So we just did the Jersey Devil. We've got The Conjuring coming up.
The true story of The Conjuring.
Exactly. Another
And the true story behind The Deliverance, that new movie coming out as well.
Just in time for, again, Halloween. Some creepy stuff.
Yeah. I think I've already done my Ed and Lorraine Warren rant here, so I think maybe I'll hold off on it next time, or maybe I'll just sneak it in a little bit. But yeah, that's what we have coming up. So if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give us a nice rating and maybe a nice review, because I read some negative ones recently and it hurt my feelings. And until next time, stay indoors, New Jerseyans.
Exactly. Yeah, if you see a goat-faced winged creature in the woods, just don't approach it and
don't engage.
Don't engage. Hopefully it will just hiss at you. Yeah, as Pauly D said, cabs are here.